Hi folks, it's Andy. Hope you're having a fantastic day. Welcome to this week's Kendo Rant. We have got plenty of questions for you today. We're going to jump to them in just a second. But before we do, don't forget to like, share, subscribe. You know the YouTube magic. Satisfy those YouTube ninja robots and help us grow the Kendo population of the world by at least 762.74 billion trillion people by tomorrow afternoon. All you have to do is do those things. Leave a comment down below using the word Kendo. All right, what a great Kendo channel. This is the best Kendo show I've ever seen. Something like that, so that we make sure that we definitely grow the Kendo population, that YouTube gets people to start Kendo, and we don't end up with them starting like I don't know, like javelin or something like that. Nothing wrong with those sports, but we're here to get, you know, we're not here to promote figure skating, folks. All right, so more importantly than that though, if you like the channel, if you like the show, whether it's this show, whether it's the shows that I do, like giving you feedback, which I did yesterday, I did one of those yesterday, whether it's the analytical content, the instructional content, it's all free of charge. There's no memberships, monthly costs, charging for subtitles, none of that stuff, none of it. It's all free, okay? Here's the real win-win. To support it, all you have to do is shop at KendoStar.com, which is the best Kendo equipment website in the history and future of the human race. Now, of course, I would say that because I own the place, but everybody agrees with me, okay? We're the highest rated by far, the best at what we do, especially for the international community. We're an established brand with a full team of staff ready to serve you, okay? We're not working out of our bedroom, drop shipping or middlemaning or anything like that, okay? We're an established company with an established brand, especially for you. All right, that's KendoStar.com. All right, don't buy twice, buy right first time round, and shop at KendoStar.com. You're gonna shop with us in the end anyway, so do it first. Okay, let's get to the questions. Hi Sensei, great videos and amazing products from KendoStar. Thank you very much. See, people are already satisfied. Is it okay to be a member of 2 dojos as a beginner? I started Kendo about a month ago and absolutely fallen in love with it. Great. I'm in my late 30s and unfortunately, as an adult, I have to go to work and be able to spend money in your store. Excuse me, I got a bit of a frog in my throat there. The issue is that I work in emergency services and my shifts can change, which means I usually make only 2 or 3 sessions in my home dojo. I've found a second dojo which I had contacted and asked if it would be okay with them if I came along and practiced on different days to my home dojo and practice with them as well. They're more than happy and very welcoming. This means I can practice 6 times a week. Wow. I usually make 4 to 5 sessions a week. My home dojo currently does not know that I supplement my missed sessions elsewhere, but commented that I'm making very good progress, and for somebody who has also only practiced once a month. I managed to catch up with people who started 2 months ahead of me. I love training 5 times a week, but I'm not sure how to tell my current sensei about the situation. I don't want to cause ripples or come across as somebody who is not grateful for training with them and therefore go somewhere else behind their back if it makes sense. Should I tell them? Okay, so so you've got a secret relationship with another dojo. Look, you need to just tell your teacher, right? I think it's perfectly fine to do what you're doing, but it needs to be out in the open. You don't want it to be all secretive and behind closed doors and stuff like that. Otherwise, you're going to give someone the wrong idea, all right? Talk to your teacher at your main dojo and say, look, sensei, because of my work schedule, I'm not sure, you know, as you know, I can't always come to every practice, but I really want to put everything into Kendo. I've been, you know, actually, I mean, it's up to you. You could come clean and just say, look, I've been going to this dojo. Is that okay? Which might be just the easiest way. Just do that. Yeah. Just go to them and say, look, you know, I noticed there was another dojo. They had training when I was available, so I popped along and they were fine for me to join in. And it's allowed me to keep up. Are you okay for me to do that? I probably should have told you before I did it, but I haven't had time and I wasn't sure about the right way to approach it or something like that. Just be honest. If you're just honest, the right thing will come in the end, okay? Just be honest. Honesty is key, all right? And I'm sure it'll be absolutely fine. All right. I think somebody commented on this as well, saying that most likely if you're in the same sort of town, the 2 teachers probably know each other. Kendo is a super small community. Okay. So that's that. Okay, next one. Hi, Fish Sensei. I sent you the Shiai video. Thank you again for the feedback. I have no doubt that the comments you make is for me to be better, so I don't mind how critical you are at all. I'll take all your advice to heart and we'll work hard to improve these points. A bit of context, I'm currently second Dan, and this is my second time joining this Nationals. Okay. I have a question, maybe for next Kendo rant, well, here we are, about throwing out of nowhere waza. My rationale for that kind of waza in the beginning was to check how my opponent responds, and then maybe adjust from there. Are there better ways to do this rather than throwing a random waza? Okay, so this is a comment from the feedback video that I put up yesterday. All right, so you're one of the people from the feedback video, and you were doing super well, and for Nidan, you did really, really good, really great, amazing, okay? Now, one of the comments I made is that you were just throwing waza in there randomly, sort of out of nowhere, and that was super dangerous. Now, I understand what you're saying about seeing how your opponent's going to respond or react, but throwing waza at them is not a good way to do that, because if they've got a reasonable amount of experience, they'll easily be able to use that against you in a counterattack. Okay, so you don't want to throw waza out there. Now, it's difficult at the stage that you're at, okay? But it will come with time. But realistically, the way you want to try and find out how your opponent responds is through your approach and your semi with your shinai. Now, as I mentioned to you in the video yesterday, you are often not engaging with their shinai. But if you have a better kamai, a better chushin, hold the center, semi towards the center, and you can move the shinai around and stuff like this, but you want to be engaging with their shinai. And by doing that, you'll be able to get an idea of how they respond to you. Rather than figuring out how they respond to your waza, you want to find out how they respond to your semi. And that will allow you to open the door to new opportunities to strike. Okay? If I approach in this specific way, I might notice that they react in a way which opens up, let's say, their kote. Okay? So that will open me the chance to hit the kote. All right, so that's what I would do rather than just throwing a waza out there and seeing what happens. Okay, it's much, much safer. Okay, but well done. Next one, what are your thoughts on using a heel protector? Controversial or not? Do you think it's a good tool to learn Fumikomi while avoiding injury, or do you think the pain is a good indication of where you're going wrong? At what point do you recommend using one? Thank you, Sensei. Okay, so I don't have particularly strong thoughts on a heel protector. I don't think I don't think they should be controversial in any way. I wouldn't say they're a good tool for learning Fumikomi, but if you're finding that practicing Fumikomi is giving you pain in the heel, then you should use one. I've used the heel pad myself several times in the past, especially when I've trained sort of consecutively over several days, and I've started to feel sort of pain in my heels. My right heel sometimes happens. It's kind of normal in a way. So yeah, I wouldn't say it's controversial in any way whatsoever. In terms of the point at which you should use one, I just use one if you start to experience pain, then start to use one. All right, I don't think it's necessarily using the pain as an indication of your learning progress. I don't think that's a good metric. I don't want Kendo to be painful for you. Okay, next one, when are you coming to Melbourne for Mawari Geiko Martinis? I like the idea of the martinis. I've never been to Australia, and I would love to go to Australia. I would love to. I would absolutely love to. So yeah, if I get the opportunity, I'll be straight over there. Hi Andy, quick question on Tenugui. For Tenugui as writing on the design, it is usually read left to right instead of the other way around. Is there a reason for this? Are there rules on how the writing is displayed depending on what is written? If the Tenugui is just a commemorative piece, or if it's used for something other than Kendo, or is it always left to right? Sorry, not such a quick singular question after all. So no, actually, most of the time, the writing is left to right, but it's not a rule. Because in Japanese, actually, that's not a rule either. Now, it's more common, especially these days, that horizontal text is read left to right, but it can be read right to left. And actually, there's also examples where it's not even read in order. Like you read the first one, then the far one, then the middle one, for example. Like the right one, then the left one, if there's three. There's ones that are like that as well. And then of course it could be written vertically. I have a couple where the text is written vertically across the Tenugui. So there's no hard and fast rule on it actually. But if it's left to right, that's the sort of standard and easiest for everyone to recognize. But there are there are different ways of doing it, definitely. In terms of I mean, it's not dependent on what's written or what the Tenugui is used for either. And it's interesting you mention something other than Kendo, because lots of people don't realize that Tenugui are not for Kendo. We just use Tenugui in Kendo. So Tenugui are an everyday Japanese item. Now, the ones we tend to use in Kendo that have Kendo-related phrases on them have been produced for use in Kendo. But that's why you have other ones as well that often have patterns or characters or cartoon characters or whatever, because they're not necessarily for Kendo. They're just for everyday use. Like these days, for example, in Japan these days, if you go to a public bathroom, there's usually like a hand dryer, but actually it wasn't always the case. So you had to dry your own hands. So most Japanese people actually often will carry some kind of small towel or a tenugui to wipe their hands after washing their hands after using the bathroom, for example. Or whatever, that sort of thing, or just a general cloth. That's what Tenugui an everyday item actually, which is why you can actually buy them in loads of places in Japan too. You can buy them in like the bookshop, something like that. Okay. Next one, Sensei, why are there no more 8th and 10th dans? Could the 8th dans elect a few of themselves if they feel worthy? So I believe it was in 2000. That the Zenkennen decided to stop awarding 9th and 10th dan. It was a sort of reshuffle. I think there'll be info on this, I'm sure, on Kenshi 247. And I think Alec Bennett Sensei wrote something about it as well. I remember reading his words on it somewhere. But basically, I understand it sort of came about. But the grading systems had a few sort of overhauls, from what I understand. I think at one point it went just up to 5th dan or something, and then you had the shogo, so the denshi, kyoshi, and hanshi being the main sort of titles. And then I think I seem to remember, I think it was Alex's article that said that obviously because Kendo and Judo are both police activities, you had Judo instructors that had 10th dan or 8th dan, whatever, 8th, 9th, 10th dan, but the Kendo instructors only had 5th dan, and so they wanted to equalize it, so they made Kendo up to 10th dan. And then I understand that what the idea is that I think it was in 2000, they decided not to award any more 10th dans or 9th dans. And 8th would be the highest level dan they would give, and then the emphasis would be that the highest pinnacle of achievement in Kendo should be the title of hanshi. So it was that was the idea, I think, was that you would instead of you get the 8th dan, and then the idea is that the pinnacle is sort of hanshi. So it was changed. That's the reason for it. Could a few 8th dans elect a few themselves? And it's not that simple, to be honest. I mean, technically or theoretically, any member federation of the International Kendo Federation could potentially award their own 9th and 10th dans if they wanted to. I don't think they would, but yeah, the Zenkennen has decided not to. Okay, so it's not something that just a few 8th dans could get together and go, okay, well now let's decide we're now 9th dans or something. They couldn't do that. The Zenkennen, the All Japan Kendo Federation, would have to decide that they were going to award them again. And I don't think that that's on the immediate sort of cards. Next one, hello Fish Sensei, can you show examples and or list them according to any of your reference materials of what are classified as hansoku other than dropping the shinai and stepping outside of the shiaijo? Yeah, it's really simple. The examples of hansoku are all written in here. This is the the rule book, which is you can get it from KendoStar actually. If I can come back in focus, there we go. So yeah, it's here. There we go. And it says in here what they are. There's an accompanying handbook which gives clearer definitions, but essentially let's have a look. It's on, in this book it's on page 7. It's chapter 3, section 1, prohibited acts. So it's basically it's not a case of, right, what is classified as hansoku. The way the rules work is this is what's prohibited, this is what's not allowed, and here are the penalties for doing it. So some of them result in hansoku, a penalty in the shiai, and some of them result in just disqualification. So things like so it says here, Article 16 is shiai are prohibited from acting. Article 15. It starts at 15, sorry, it says shiai are prohibited from abusing drugs. Okay, so you can't use drugs. 16 says that shiai are prohibited from insulting or acting offensively towards the shinpain or the opponents. 17 says shiai are prohibited from the following acts. 1, use of non-regulation kendo equipment. 2, tripping the opponent or sweeping their legs. 3, unfairly shoving or pushing the opponent out of the shiaijo. Now the key word in that is unfairly. 4, jogai or stepping out of the shiaijo while the match is in place, or stepping out of the court. 5, letting go of the shinai. So you've mentioned those two, obviously. 6, requesting for a suspension of the shiai without a justifiable reason. 7, committing other acts that violate the regulations. So, in other words, something that essentially goes against the rules. Now, basically. And then it goes on to say what the penalties are. But just to be clear, it says, so when it says that part, committing acts that violate the rules, then there's the subsidiary rules, right, on the other side. Okay, so let's just step back a little bit. When it talks about jogai stepping out of the shiaijo, it details that as well. It says Article 15 subsidiary rules says that jogai, as prescribed in Article 17 item 4 of the regulations, is specified as followed. 1, having one foot totally outside of the boundary line. Okay, so your foot has to be totally out of the boundary line. Or 2, falling on the floor with part of the body outside of the boundary line. And 3, supporting the body with part of the body or shinai outside of the boundary line. So those two mean if you fall on the floor and your shoulder goes over the line, the line's here and your shoulder's outside, it's touching the floor, or you fall and your head hits the floor, that's out. All right, or if you start to fall and you put your shinai down to stop you falling over and it goes out, then that's out as well. Okay, and then in terms of committing other acts that violate the regulations, you get a bit of a breakdown here. It says subsidiary rules 16, prohibited acts prescribed in Article 17, Item 7 of the regulation shall include the following. 1, putting one's hand on the opponent or holding the opponent in one's arms. Right, so you can't touch them. All right, you can't touch them, you can't put your arms around them. All right. 2, taking hold of the opponent's shinai or grasping one's own shinai on its jimbu. All right, so holding the blade of your shinai or holding your opponent's shinai in any place. 3, taking hold of the opponent's shinai under one's arm. So if you hook their shinai under your arm. 4, intentionally putting one's shinai on the opponent's shoulder. And what that means is like pushing on it. It's not the same as the kuzushi waza, which is sort of momentarily using it to push. It means putting it on it. And that's made clear in the handbook. 5, lying face down after falling on the floor without counteracting the opponent. It means that if you fall over and you kind of curl up in a ball and try and stop yourself getting hit, that's a hansoku as well. 6 is intentionally wasting time. And 7 is inappropriate subazeriai or datotsu. So like hitting a place that's not fair or not part of the borgo. So like intentionally, obviously hitting hitting elbows or something, I guess, or like doing a waza that's not allowed or something. Then also doing the super zeri that's not fair. Okay. They're the main ones. Now, of course, there's others that are new as part of the provisional rules, but I've got a video about that, so I suggest you watch the video I've done recently about super zeri. Now, if you commit, it says Article 18 penalty. So this is what happens if you do any of these. If a shiaisha commits any of the hansoku prescribed in Article 15 or 16, so that means using the drugs or being insulting or offensively towards shimpannin or opponents. Yeah. It says taijo. Yeah. So you shall lose the shiai and be ordered to retire from the shiai area. Brackets taijo. So you're disqualified basically. The points or status hitherto gained by the violator shall be totally nullified, whereas opponents will be given 2 points. So you lose the match and your opponent gets 2 points. The Fusei Yoga, which is from, it says, a shiaisha who commits a hansoku stipulated in Article 17, Item 1, so that means using the non-regulation equipment, shall receive penalties as outlined below. In cases whereby both shiaisha commit such hansoku, both shall lose the shiai and their points or status gained hitherto shall be nullified. So if both of them do that, then both of them get disqualified. One, a shiaisha who uses prohibited kendo equipment shall lose a shiai. Any points or so, you get disqualified. And then 2, the penalty stipulated in the previous paragraph will not be retroactive to the preceding shiai wherein the use of prohibited kendo had not been had not been detected. So if you use, it means like prohibited kendo equipment, right? What could that mean, right? Well, the most common and obvious example of this is when you use a shinai that's not been through a shinai check. If there's a shinai check in place for a shiai and you're supposed to get a mark and then you switch it out or something like that, for example, all right? It could also be something that's not in the right state of repair, that's dangerous to use, that sort of thing. And if you found that, then you lose that match, but like the history of your shiai on that day doesn't get affected, okay? A shiaisha is detected, this is number 3, a shiaisha is detected using prohibited equipment will be disallowed from participating in the remaining shiai. However, the violator may be substituted in dantai shiai unless otherwise stipulated. So if it's a team match, and you use the Fusei Yoga, the inappropriate equipment, you lose a match, you get kicked out, your scores for the previous matches don't get affected, and your team you're not allowed to play again for the rest of the event, but your team can swap you for another player unless the tournament rules say otherwise, okay? Some tournament rules say you can't swap the players around still. And then it goes on basically to say that in the case where a shiaisha commits 2 hansoku stipulated in Article 17, items 2 to 7, the opponent shall be given 1 point. The number of such hansoku shall be cumulative during the round of the concerned shiai. However, when both shiaisha have gained 1 point retrospectively, a second hansoku simultaneously committed by both shiaisha shall be cancelled, sosai, and not be subject to penalisation. Okay, so that's something that never happens. But what that means is, all right, so it's talking about now all the other ones that we listed, all right? So not using the drugs, not using doing the offensive behaviour, not using the non-regulation equipment, all the other stuff we talked about, that's where you get your regular hansoku, where if you do it twice, the other person gets a point. However, if both players, what that's saying is if both players are on 1 point each, all right, so you're fighting for the last point, and you both have 1 hansoku already, and then you both perform another hansoku simultaneously, all right, so both of the players should get the hansoku, then they cancel each other out, okay? So you can't both score 2 points in the match, if that makes sense. And there we go. And that's basically it. All right. So I've read it out to you anyway. there's more details on it in this book here, but yeah, it's all in there. Okay, so there it is. That's story time for today. Okay. Okay, next one. Sensei, a few rants ago you discussed the importance of Tame, and I've been trying to understand it more during my practice. I've also found a blog post of yours from 2020 discussing some of its physical characteristics and its relationship to Datotsu no Kikai. I've been trying to figure out the right amount of tension in my left leg, and I generally do feel improvement in my ability to strike when I see an opening, especially with debana waza. Good. However, last night I was going against a much younger and faster Kendo guy, and I felt like the building of tension was actually slowing me down, allowing him to strike me first. This made me question if I'm actually building Tame correctly. I was wondering if you could expound more on what good Tame feels like, both physically and mentally, as well as more ways to cultivate it. Thank you in advance. All right, it's not an easy thing, but I don't think of it as something that you sort of build, all right? Essentially, you set your kamae, you stand in your best kamae, you have your mind switched on and your spirit ready to go, and then you lock your footwork in and you make it so that your left foot is ready to launch you into a strike at any given point, all right? And you start that before you even touch their shinai. And then once you get to here, you begin your approach whilst continuing that sort of state of effects, all right? It's extremely difficult, all right? It's extremely difficult, right? And whilst doing that, they might attack you, all right? They might attack you. And if they attack you when you're able to respond, which is what is the ideal situation, then simple, bam, bam, whatever, or debana, whatever, right? But if not, the worst thing you can do is break the kamae, because that just resets everything. That just kind of lets all the air out of the balloon. Do you know what I'm saying? All right. So I don't think of it as this thing that builds up and up and up. It's like something you should have in the beginning and maintain is more of a thing. And through that, of course, tension builds between you and your partner, because you're there and you're serious, right? And you're ready to go and you're ready to launch this at any moment. And in theory, so are they. But obviously when they're younger and faster and stuff like that, they might not care about that, because they're young, they're fast, they can jump and fly in, even if they don't really care much about or understand much about what timing or opportunity they're doing it. But if you can retain concentration whilst having the term I like to use is aggressively patient mindset, and you don't get sucked into their actions, and you remain confident, retain your kamae, then in theory they shouldn't be able to hit you no matter how fast they are. Now it's easier said than done, all right? Because you start to get scared and you start to doubt yourself and you start to become unsure if things are really ready to work or not. So it's very difficult. There's no quick route to it. It's just a case of continuing it. But it sounds like you're on the right track. It really does sound like you're on the right track. But it's all about having the left leg intense and ready to go, ready to send you flying at a moment's notice, or an instant's notice, really. And then that will communicate itself to your partner, who will respond in some way, and then it's how you deal with that response. That's the key, right? So it's not so easy. It's really difficult. All right, I'm struggling with it too. I'm telling this. It's not like I can do it all. Don't get me wrong, right? Yeah, I'm struggling with this stuff too. Yeah, and I think that's part of the idea of it, isn't it? So, just because you understand it doesn't necessarily mean you can do it either, right? So just keep it up. I'm sure you'll get there. Okay, last one. Hello and Happy New Year. Happy New Year. May bring lots of practice and opportunity to get better in Kendo for all. Indeed. I have technical questions. One, at what point should one consider changing the menhimo? I have mine that are a little frayed but still holding strong, but ideally what is the timing of change do you recommend? So it depends. I only change a menhimo if they are particularly tatty and look really bad, or if they break. All right? So I always keep a spare set in case they break. Other than that, it should just be, as long as they don't look totally tatty and, messy, then they're fine, okay? Kote himo, I can only assume there is a way to tie as standard. I had a look at different resources, but maybe there's a way that I prefer. There's not a particular way I prefer, to be honest. Most of the resources online have the same way of lacing it up. And then the way I just tie it is I hold the two himo together and then just tie it in a knot. And if there's still some left, maybe I'll tie it in a double knot. But if there's still some left, I'll cut it. And yeah. 3, how did you go about throwing away shinai whilst in Japan? I have a bunch that I feel like I fudged it a bit every time until now. Usually chucking them away when moving apartments or taking them to a rubbish processing plant. Well, maybe there's a clever way to get rid of bamboo. Any advice would be great. New year, new ideas. Thank you very much, Kendo. What did I used to do? For a lot of the time, I'll be honest with you, I'll be cheeky about this because I was lucky to work in a company that was Kendo related, especially my years in Kumamoto, and we had some like industrial waste bins out the back, and I think everyone used to just bin the shinai in there, if I remember right. I think, but I think what I used to do to bin them off is I used to strip the parts off them, and then I think I'd put them out with the recycling. I think I can't really remember, if I'm honest with you. It wasn't so hard to dispose of them. It's harder here in the UK, to be honest. I'd have to take them to the actual rubbish disposal area. You know, like the what do you call it? In the UK we call it tip, but I think in like other countries, what do you call it? The garbage yard or something. I don't know. It's some place like that where you like go and take all your household stuff. I'd probably have to do that. So that's what I do at the moment, is like I just collect them. Collection. Now I'm lucky I don't break shinai so often. I only do like a few a year, but still, you know. But yeah, I'm sure it's much easier in Japan, to be honest. I seem to remember we used to just put it with either with the recycling or with the standard rubbish. But I stripped the parts off at first, I'm pretty sure as well. All right, they know what it is, right? The garbage guys know what it is. The rubbish guys know what it is. So I think last time I did bin some at the rubbish processing plant as well, which are pretty easily accessible in Japan too. So yeah, there we go, all done. Thank you very much for joining me today. Don't forget, like, share, subscribe, shop at KendoStar, and I'll see you next time. Bye bye.